Welcome back, everybody. Joe Everest, the fence expert, and we're fortunate enough today to have Mark Olson in the studio. We started out as having just one interview, but this interview went for quite a while, and we covered a couple different subjects. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into two separate interviews. Today's interview, we're going to talk about the story of Mark Olson and really the story of SWI Fence. The next video series you'll be seeing will be basically what numbers are important to your business and why you should know more about your numbers. But for now, we'll cut to the video. So you're a fencer in Wyoming. Let's start at the beginning. How did you get into fencing?
Oh, geez. How much time do you have? Because that's a long story. I was 15 years old. We moved. I was a sophomore in high school, and we moved from Lander, Wyoming, up to Powell, Wyoming. I was kind of a troubled kid. I was a handful. Let's just put it that way. And my parents thought that I needed something to do, so they got with somebody from our church who actually was a fence contractor. And it was this old farmer rancher. I mean, just picture the weathered hair and the beat up cowboy hat and all that stuff.
Sure.
And he's like, "Well, I'll give you a job." And I'm telling you, I wish I was half the salesman that guy was, because there's no way I should have taken that job. It's like, well, during the school year, I'll pay you about $150 a month. And then after that, after the school year's over in the summer, we'll pay you about $300 a month. And even that, I mean, I should have known better. This is like 1994, 95. That wasn't good back then either.
Right.
Wage is like $5 an hour.
Sure.
And so I worked the whole summer. And one of the caveats is, he said, you can't quit. Once you start, you can't quit.
Okay.
I mean, there again, had I known what I was getting into, I'm like, oh, heck no.
There should be some warning signs in there.
Yeah, there was definitely some warning signs. So anyhow, I made the deal and went to building fence. And so come to find out that it was not like an 8 to 5 deal in the summer. It was sun up to sundown. We were 6 days a week because I was raised LDS or Mormon. Mm-hmm. And so, Sundays were for church, and I was not going to church. And that was one of the things my kids are like, or my parents were like, this kid's, he's off the rails. We got to get control of him. So
yeah,
doing all kinds of things, smoking, drinking. I was doing it all. So they sent me with Carl Jones, was the guy's name, and he kind of took me under his wing. And we were working 14-hour days, 6 days a week. So it amounted to about $1 an hour that summer. The first whole month's paycheck went to buying a pair of Hawthorne boots, $300
There you
boots.
go, yeah.
The whole month's paycheck went to that.
But it was building character.
So we were building character.
Tell you.
And what he did for me is he taught me how to work. Yep. The most important thing, and I don't know if you can teach somebody how to work, but he came as close as you can to teaching me how to work. And people say, so along with that is we did get free room and board, and that consisted of anything and everything you could eat out of a can. And your room was in the truck, on the truck, under the truck, or around the truck. Because we were way up in the mountains of Wyoming.
Okay.
I mean, always 20, 30, 40 minutes from any town.
Now, were you working on his properties then, or just for other
contractor? Yeah. So we did some game and fish stuff for the Wyoming Game and Fish. We did anything and everything. We did some federal work, just private ranches and stuff like that. That's a lot of what he did. Okay. And so we drug, if you're familiar with buck and rail fence, we were doing a whole ton of that. And so we drug all those poles into place using horseback. I mean, so it's horseback, no four-wheelers. We did not have a Bobcat, no skid steer. And the best piece of equipment he had was an old Ford 9-in tractor with a 3-point auger on the back. Yeah. And so to get that thing down, it was two of us hanging on digging bars, trying to give it some down pressure to get the holes dug. And that usually got us about that deep. And then the rest of that was by hand. 100% by hand. And people said, now, if that was your introduction to fencing, why in the world are you still doing this? And the answer is, I didn't have another option. But I figured there had to be a better way. So long story short, that ends, and I started dating my now wife. So I was 15 years old when we started dating. We've been together forever. Yeah. Almost 25, 30 years, something like that. It's a long time. But her family put us to work redoing all the fences around their place, and I got to date her with their blessing, eat all the cookies I could eat, and drink all the soda I could drink, and make $6 an hour. So I was like, I was in. And that gave me that taste of freedom that being my own boss could be. And so ever since then, there was a couple of years there through college and stuff that I didn't fence full time, and I went to work for some other people. But pretty much my entire life, with the exception of about 3, 4 years, has been self-employed since the time I was 15.
You know what's funny, Mark? So you hear kind of the similar story when you're talking to other fence company owners. They all tend to start out at a young age and just do hard labor for a while and then figure out there's got to be a better way of doing it.
Yeah, that was me. I was like, we knew. I just like there's a better way to do this.
So then you transitioned to doing it for your own. Now is that when SWI started?
No.
Okay.
No, it isn't. I wish it was. So my junior and senior year, I basically fenced for a large part of that on my own.
Okay.
And I had an older brother that worked with me, and he was with me at Carl Jones's. Kind of got the same introduction at the same time, so we were together. There was a little solace in misery loves company. So
sure.
I had his company through all that miserable time, and we were like, well, so he helped me rebuild all the fences around the pastures for my in-laws, my now in-laws, and so just off and on. Then we kind of got together and built some fences, and then we'd go do a job. And then senior year, another farmer down the road hired us, and so it was just one thing after another. And I moved to Laramie to go to University of Wyoming.
Okay, yeah.
Worked for Big A Auto Parts, which turned into CarQuest, and that was short-lived. For I think I worked there maybe 2.5 years or something like that, but built fence on the side there.
Sure.
And that was better money than the CarQuest was.
Yeah.
And ended up going to North Platte, Nebraska to manage a store for him. That lasted exactly 1 year to the day before I got fired from that job. And then it was to the oil field.
Okay.
For 6 months, but I was a week on, a week off. So what do you think I did? Went straight back into fencing on my week off.
Yeah.
And then that got busy enough that we just went full time in 2002.
Okay.
With Olson Fencing. And that's when we legit started paying taxes. You know, legit,
yeah.
Well, legitimate.
It wasn't a side hustle. It was your main hustle.
It wasn't to say it was the main hustle, and we were paying taxes, and that's when we really started making mistakes. And so there's a video series on Successful Contractor. If you want to know the whole story from that, it ended up in failure. It took us 10 years to fail, but I got it done. I like to think I stick in there, and no matter what happens, I'm going to get it done. And that's exactly what I did.
Saw it through to the end.
Oh, I saw it through the end, to the bitter, fiery crash of an end. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's important to bring up, though, Mark, because just because it was the end of that chapter doesn't mean it was the end of the book.
No, right. It was. So that experience was incredible. I mean, it was incredibly embarrassing. It was something I was horribly ashamed of. I didn't want to talk about it for a very long time, but that's kind of the Successful Contractor thing. Is there was so much pain and there were so many mistakes I made that I feel like, unfortunately, I was not the exception. I was the rule. That's
sure
what you see in not just fence companies, but contracting in general. You're really good at the trade, but don't have any idea how to do the business part of things. And
sure.
So people struggle and stumble and make a lot of mistakes, and it just catches up with them. And so that's what that channel was developed for, is to kind of help people along. And hey, you don't have to fail like
sure.
I did.
Sure.
And know that if you do, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's embarrassing, but there's been a million people that have come before you, and there'll be
sure.
a million people after you.
Sure. Well, and I think sometimes people let that hold them back. The fear of failure hold them back. It's that. It's almost. I would almost prefer to have a small failure than move on, learn from that failure, move on, and then create something better.
I told my wife today when I was driving down here, I got a lot of time. I had 6.5 hours to think about.
Sure.
Talk to her. And so I was saying, I told her there's 3 things I do really well. One of them is make decisions, whether they're right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm going to make a decision.
Sure.
I am a very decisive person. It's going to take me a very small amount of time to gather the information and just say, and I don't care if it's wrong.
Sure.
I just want to, if I'm going to get it wrong, I'd rather get it wrong fast and move on.
Yep.
So I said, I make decisions fast. I'm a great problem solver. So I like to solve problems, and I would forget what the third one was. There's something else I'm good at. I don't know, breaking stuff. And then just being a risk taker. I'm not scared to fail. And that whole experience, well, I hesitate to say that a little bit. I'm terrified of failure, but that motivates me as well. Sure.
Well, and here's the thing is, I don't think it's a failure if you learn from it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely not.
I think the only failure is when you walk away without learning something or without taking something away from it. I tell the guys here that I'm not upset with mistakes as long as there was a teachable moment, as long as there is learning, as long as we got better because of it. Mistakes don't concern me. Mistakes concern me if there was absolutely no benefit of making it. If we didn't learn anything, if we didn't get better before, that's the only mistake that I think is, would be a failure. Otherwise, as long as you're learning from it and you move on, I think it's fine. It's a learning, teachable moment.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want to, in our company, we just don't want to see you do the same thing over again. So if I go out and fail tomorrow, obviously I didn't learn enough.
Sure.
That's my goal, is to not do that.
Yeah.
But if I go out and create success out of that failure, then we can think that, okay, that was just a learning curve that we went through. I heard it said once that success is just the mountain of failures you're standing on. I mean, nobody gets there without stumbling and falling at least once or twice.
Right. Well, and just learning from it and getting better, becoming better. I mean, no one's ever had a flawless career. You know what I mean? Whether we're talking about sports, business, whatever. If you talk to some of the most successful people, they'll tell you it wasn't flawless. There was always learning experiences. There was always hiccups along the way, but that brought them down the road that they were currently on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just God's plan. I tried. Absolutely. I almost tried to get out of fencing after that failure. I was so defeated and thought I was going to go work for somebody. I applied for several positions. I wanted to move to Tennessee. That was okay. I love Tennessee. I love Nashville. And so I put applications and resumes all over Tennessee. This is 2013.
Okay.
And like some of the biggest fence companies, and how everybody's saying, we just need talent. We need people.
Right.
I didn't get one single person. That was God's way. To me, that was God's way of saying, hey, you know what? You're not done here.
Yeah.
You're just going to have to start over again. But yet the phone started ringing again, and the company that was kind of defunct. And my brother and I kind of looked at each other and said, well, I guess we start over. I don't know. Nobody's, people are calling us for a fence, but nobody's calling me for a job. So
sure.
I guess we're still fencers.
Pretty clear sign.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he knows I'm kind of stupid, so he had to make it black and white. I mean, it was like not one. But I'm not emphasizing not one call. And today, I would like to think that if I needed a job, somebody'd want me for at least a laborer.
Right.
I think I'm qualified.
Yeah,
I am a little chubby, but I think I can pull it off.
So we don't have any management positions, but we do have a concrete hauler.
Yeah, I mean, we think you'd make a decent foreman. I mean, you used to do it once 20 years ago.
Sure, yeah. So that was kind of the birth of SWI.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So so you started out in a single location, building fence, you and your brother.
Yep.
What was the transition like moving forward from that to current day? You've got multiple locations.
So we've got I'll call it 3.5 locations.
Sure.
Jackson's an unstaffed office
location.
We do a ton of work over there. We're just not sure how we're going to move that location forward because of the cost of living there. So.
Sure. So what took you from a single location to multiple locations? Was there an aha moment, or was it just general growth?
Yeah, I would say there was an aha moment. So 2007, in our story when we were Olson Fencing, we had some pretty big success in 2008. And I think if we would have parlayed that into doing what we talked about, we're always like, well, I'd like to get multiple locations. And my older brother and I just weren't getting along. Each of us needs to have our autonomy.
Sure. Yeah.
When you have family, it can be really tough when, one person, I'm the hard driving, hard charging person, and Carl's a little bit more reserved. And if we would have done something like that, but I don't think any one of us was willing to leave Powell and actually start something new. So fast forward to starting SWI, and we're going pretty good, and things, we start off well, and we learn from the mistakes. And him and I were starting to butt heads just a little bit, and I think he felt like I was over the top of him, and he didn't have the autonomy he needed to be able to be successful and do his own thing. And I said, you know what, why don't you go down to Casper and start there, because that's the center of the state, and there's more people there. Because one of the things I felt like we made a mistake of is we started our company where we were at, which is great, but Powell, Wyoming, 6,000 people. It's really hard to get, and we were covering the entire state already.
Sure.
And so we looked at Casper and said, we're doing a ton of work down there. We're traveling all the time. What if we put a location there and we stop traveling so much? So we put a crew there, and then we don't have to ship people, and they're home with their families more often. And
sure.
So that was kind of the aha moment for that. And that was scary as crap. I'm not gonna lie, because we're signing a lease for 3 years, and it's a big lease, and we're like, that was the first building we leased. We were basically, until that time, we were working out of the Worldwide Shed Quarters, which was a 16 by 20 shed in our yard in Powell.
Yeah, that
was zero cost, and we're going and signing a lease for $3,000 a month for 3 years.
Yeah,
personal guarantees, the whole 9 yards.
Big step.
So that was scary. But like I said, I'm not afraid to take risks if I think they're calculated.
Sure. Well, and that's the thing. They're educated risks, right? And crunch numbers. And if it makes sense, it makes sense.
There's 10 times the people in Casper that there is in Powell. So there's more people there. We're already doing a ton of work there. So it's like, this makes logical sense. And I put it down on paper, and did I budget anything? I would be lying if I said I sat down and penciled everything out.
Sure.
I shoot a lot more from the hip and the gut, from my gut feeling, than I will anything else.
Well, that's the thing, though, is, gut feeling is typically intuition. Like, you've done it long enough. You knew that there's possibility there, that then your intuition told you this makes sense. So informed risks, really. So what's the timeline between SWI starting and that second office? How long had you guys been SWI before you started branching out?
Give me just a second to think about this. 3 years, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty short timeline.
Yeah. I knew that, that was something I really regretted not doing, because I felt like that could have saved us. If we'd have branched out and done and capitalized on some markets earlier, I think that we would have done a lot better as Olson Fencing, and we just didn't do that. We always talked about it. We're always too scared. Sure.
Well, because it is a big step.
So we started in 2014. At the very end of 2016, we started the second location.
Okay, sure.
Then a year after that, we started our third location.
So talk to me about that step. So the second step makes sense because it's two brothers wanting autonomy from each other, and the second location makes sense.
So at that time, Alan was traveling back and forth between Powell, and he was waiting to sell his house because he was going to move to Casper. And in the meantime, he started building the team there, which now is Veronica, and got some rock star people down there. We had a couple brothers that moved from Powell down to Casper to actually fill the foreman spots and really start that off. So that took off really fast and really well. And he was not born and raised, but he moved with my parents down to Cheyenne for several years. So he was raised in Cheyenne. Okay. And that was the next location that we wanted to do, because that's the second most populous place in Wyoming.
Makes sense.
And so he said, if I had a druthers, now that we've got Casper up and running, we've got people there, I'd rather live in Cheyenne if we want to do that. And so we looked at Cheyenne a year later and said, let's sign a lease and get a building in Cheyenne. And we actually tried to work with somebody else and kind of join forces. Sure. And we've done that two times before. We said, hey, we're moving into your community. Is there any chance you want to sell out, team up, something like that? And everybody's like, no. So then we just, we do what's good for us at that point in time. And because there's some good competition there. Good competition, not people have animosity towards it. Just keep us on our toes.
Yeah, healthy competition is always good. I think it's needed. So, it fosters innovation. It fosters, it keeps everybody sharp.
We talked to both of those people before we ever even moved into their communities and said, this is something we're eyeballing. Is there something you want to work together on, or would you rather we just go off on our own? So we've done in both cases. And so now Alan's down in Cheyenne. He's extremely happy there, and he's got that up and running. And, the first time you do something like that, it's scary. The second time was a heck of a lot less scary.
Sure. Well, because you just done it.
We exercise that muscle. And so the second time it's like, oh, well, we've done this before and it worked out.
Well, and you knew what hurdles you were facing before you faced them. You knew that this, we'll see this hurdle and this is how we got past it already.
Yeah. And so we knew that it was going to take us 3 years to get that thing off the ground. It's from the start of doing something. It takes in Wyoming, maybe if you're in a big market or something, but for us, it's 3 years from the time you start to where you feel like it's really cranking, like our other first location was.
Sure.
And that's where we're at now, and things are moving well. But I don't regret doing any of it so far.
So that brings me to kind of another question is, so for each location, obviously you have staffing. You have to, and if you watch the Facebook groups, there's no one worth hiring anywhere. So
that's a damn lie.
I know it is, but when you read the comments, that seems to be there's no one wanting to work. There's no help everywhere. So how do you find the guys and gals that put your team together?
I think if I was the root cause of all that is not charging enough for products, and I say that because the thing you have to do if you want to attract good people is you've got to be willing to pay for them. Good people know their value.
Sure. And
you say, people shouldn't be working for just money. But are any of us out there? I mean, do we want to work for nothing?
Everybody's got bills.
Yeah.
And everyone has dreams and ambitions. Sure.
You can't pay people what they're worth, and you can't attract the top talent if you're not making enough money to find those people. Sure. That is not to say that is the only thing that should matter. Right. If they're only in it for the money, it's never going to work out.
Yeah, but it's usually a large factor in that.
But you cannot you're not going to attract the next CEO of Amazon by offering $100,000 a year.
Sure. That's right.
Sometimes that's a mentality that we have is we want that CEO that's going to take us to $1 billion, but we only want to pay so much.
Well, and it's easy for the guys who've been doing fencing for a long time. It's easy to say, well, there's no way I would pay that. That's crazy money. Because when I was active in the fencing, I only earned this much.
Yeah, when I started out in fencing, I was making $1 an hour. So you think that I'm like, you know what, inflation? I've done the calculation. That's probably $3 an hour today. So I'm going to start with $3 an hour.
Sure.
You know how many people? You're not going to get anybody.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing is you got to. Rock stars require rock star pay.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're going to hire rock stars, A-team, whatever you want to call them, you have to pay accordingly. And I mean, you're right in the sense too that money isn't everything. I'm a very large proponent of, running disc profiles, that sort of, to figure out what motivates someone and compensate them accordingly. But, even if it's benefits, even if it's something else, that all comes down to charging enough to where you can pay for those. You can afford to offer benefits because maybe someone says, I will be willing to take a lower per hour or salary, depending on how you pay. But I do need benefits. I need medical. I need this and that. And you have to go buy that. So it does cost money at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah. Ultimately, everything still comes down. If you want to create a team atmosphere, you've got to have team events. And those team events, where you guys can do those things, those cost money.
That's right.
And if you might find somebody that's like, I don't really care about making $5,000 an hour. But what I really need is I need good insurance because I've got this child at home that is, we've got this issue with her. And you can't find those people if you're not willing to do everything you can for the team.
That or paid time off is a big thing.
Oh, huge.
Vacation, paid time off, whatever you want to call it. That does cost money as well.
Costs money, but it's not like insurance. The first thing everybody thinks of is insurance.
Right. That's right.
They not. And it's true that's expensive. But there's so much else that you can do to provide value to your team that's not insurance if you just can't afford it.
Well, and that's the thing. So when we started out offering benefits, we couldn't afford medical insurance. I mean, it is expensive to offer in group health terms. So we partnered with a local Concierge Doctor group. So it's a private medical practice where we paid for each one of our team members to have access to that team, as a per month fee. So it wasn't exactly medical insurance because that was several $1,000s a month that we didn't have. But by teaming up with a private medical practice, it saved us quite a bit, but it still gave our team access to medical care. Mm-hmm. Everything up to, urgent care level. They could do stitches. They could do that. So just because someone out there can't afford medical insurance doesn't mean they can't offer benefits similar to that. Yeah. It's kind of my point.
Look for workarounds, maybe something and we have one of those in our area where you can pay $30. It's so much per family.
Yeah.
It's it's not going to work for all of our people, but there's those people out there.
Well, that's the thing is it doesn't cover everything.
Get you an appendectomy.
That's right. Like that. Well, or in my case, we had a little baby girl in December. Well, they don't deliver babies. So that still requires some medical insurance. And we've grown from that. But my point being, just because someone isn't in the place to offer X, Y, and Z benefits doesn't mean that they're not able to offer a similar benefit too. I think it's important.
The other thing I would challenge those people is, do you know who you're looking for? Some of those people don't know who they're looking for.
Sure.
Me, if you ask me, I know exactly the profile of the person I'm looking for, the profile of the person that works well in our company. Sure. You know that about your company. And if you don't, you probably better figure it out.
You need to take some time and figure that out. Because, I mean, here's the thing. I've been guilty of this in the past. If you can fog a mirror and you will show up reasonably, certainly on time, you've got a job. And I say reasonably certainly because if start times, 6:30 in the morning, as long as they're in by 7, we'll let it slide because we really need somebody. You know what I mean? I've been guilty of that.
Yeah, I have too. Yeah. But setting the bar pretty low there, aren't we?
Well, because I think to your point, because we hadn't pinpoint dialed in exactly who we were looking for. We were sniping with a shotgun, really. And we had to take who we could take. And when we figured out exactly who we needed, and for us, it's per position, right? So a crew chief or a foreman, that person looks very different than a fabricator in terms of who they are, what interests them, what motivates them, just different people, different walks of life. And so really that was a game changer for us, is figuring out, to your point, exactly who we needed to fill the spot rather than will you show up on time? Pretty please. We've seen massive results by pinpointing exactly who we wanted.
Yeah, this is we look at it as a team.
Yeah.
So we have very clear expectations of what we need out of them, and they should have clear expectations of us. So I don't like to use the word employee because
absolutely,
back in the Olson fencing days, we kind of, and you've heard him say, I'm paying you. You'll show up when who signs the bottom of your checks. It's that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
That goes along with employees.
Sure. Sure.
And they always say employees show up late, leave early, and still where they're there. So nobody wants any of that. So if you don't want that, you need to build a team. And by team, I mean the people, everybody's got their role on the team. Yeah. When they're on the football field, every single position has, this is what you do in that position.
That's right. Yeah, that's the thing. So my football team's the Kansas City Chiefs because we're here in Missouri, and the Kansas City Chief isn't fielded by 30 quarterbacks, right? Yep. I mean, that if you had 30 quarterbacks, nothing would get done. No, each role has a specific job title and responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, you need that mother hen that's kind of looking over everybody. I mean, every company's got the mom.
Sure.
And it might be a female. It's somebody, it's the glue to the whole organization.
That's right.
And then you've got the installers, the people that are just detail oriented and they don't mind being in charge. And then you've got the people that are just really good at their trade and don't necessarily want to be in charge. And those are some of the best installers we've got.
Absolutely. And that's something that we kind of had a hard time figuring out too, is we would try to promote someone above where they were comfortable. Mm-hmm. So we would try to promote them from like a second position into a crew chief. And it didn't work out. No one was happy with that. We weren't happy. They weren't happy. And we were both miserable for it because it took us a little while to learn. We need to ask, hey, would you like to be the crew chief? And maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to show up. We've got several guys like that who are open about, I want to show up when I'm supposed to show up. I want to go home when I'm supposed to go home. And I don't want to think about fence while I'm home. Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's fine. That's absolutely okay. As long as we know that going into it. Yeah. Our crew chiefs are more involved than that.
Yeah.
But they want to be. They want to have a little bit more responsibility and think about, today they're thinking about what they're doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yep.
And they're thinking about what's coming up next week. They're thinking chess instead of checkers. Yep. Right. But there's some guys that simply don't want that. And figuring out who those people are, it's a big part of your business.
Yeah. And we've been guilty of that as well, promoting somebody past where they're comfortable and just really good at what they do. So the natural step is, of course, they want to move up. Well, not everybody wants that.
Yeah, right.
And you've got to be careful about that because that could end in failure for them and you. And don't be afraid to say if something's not working out. Say, okay, it feels like maybe you're not comfortable there.
Yep.
Would you be more comfortable if we put you back here? And sometimes people only want to move up because they see the dollars.
Sure.
And that's the wrong reason.
Absolutely. Yeah. They want the benefit, but they don't want the responsibility. So one thing we figured out too is sometimes we need to move someone laterally, meaning that maybe they don't want to be in the field, but they would be perfectly happy in fabrication. They're still a good employee. They're just unhappy with their current position. So is there somewhere else in here in our organizational structure that you'd be more happy? Because what we've learned a long time ago is it costs a lot of money to lose somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of, all right, now we have to go recruit again. Well, and let's talk about that. You should always be recruiting, but we have to go find somebody again. We have to go through the vetting process, the pre-employment, the new hire paperwork and all of that. It costs a lot of money. So if we can find some place here that they'd be more happy, if we can move them sideways instead of out, we end up saving quite a bit of money.
And we've done that. So our salesperson used to be an installer.
Yeah.
He loves to talk. Guy, he's extrovert.
Yeah.
He's a natural salesman. He's doing sales. He's been with us since before the bankruptcy. I mean, these are the kind of people we brought along with us that are part of our team now. Yeah. And he's a salesperson because he loves to talk. I had another guy that loved to weld. He went to school for welding. He was an installer for us on 2 different occasions, and it just felt like he wasn't thriving in his position.
Sure.
Put him in the shop welding, and that guy could weld more panels and more gates faster than anybody else and just head down and got it done. Had we not done that, we probably would have lost him, and we both end up frustrated.
Right. And it would have cost your business a lot of money trying to replace him.
Yeah, I don't like to replace people. People forget how expensive. Because it's not something that's super tangible to see how much it costs to recruit and retrain.
Yeah. Well, because you don't have to open up your checkbook when it happens. Like there's nothing you don't get a bill for it. But when you stop and think about it, and not only in terms of money, but also in terms of your time.
Productivity. I mean, productivity just plummets.
Yeah, absolutely.
You cannot have high turnover and be the most successful company that you're capable of being.
No. Well, and yeah, it's downtime. It's lost opportunities that you could have taken advantage of if you weren't taking time to do the new hire process. So I think that's a golden nugget that someone should take away from this is, before you turn somebody out, before you turn them loose, you should really examine, one, why they're not working out very well, because it could simply be because they're just unhappy in that particular position, and see if there's another position in your company that they might be more happy in, knowing that it will cost you less money to move them somewhere else than it will be to lose them. Well, guys, I appreciate you staying tuned with us for so long. For now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert.
I'm Mark Olson, not the fence expert.
We're here to remind you that good fences make good neighbors. We'll talk to you next time.